Hi Dan, it's Kurt. I just thought I'd use the model to kind of go over a few things I've been noticing or struggling with, just as a warm up for when we get together on Wednesday. Excuse me. So this is the model of the foundation walls, and I'm pretty sure I've got this wall and these correct, or close enough for what we're doing. I think I'm a little confused about this wall here underneath the new house. I know I don't have this lower floor right, or how this foundation wall works with that, um, but it also doesn't affect me, so I'm just gonna kind of leave it be there for a bit and then walk you through the rest of it. So this wall here, to its opposite outermost part, is the 20-foot width foundation wall that you'll see on my drawings, and that's the basis of most of what I'm doing here. Um, This one doesn't have the step because you got the porch step here, but here's the 4-inch step. Here's the 4-inch step going around this wall. So this is like 6 inches and 4, so this part of the foundation is 10 inches wide. Over here it was 12 and 12. And then this side it was 4 inches, and then this part over here, uh, the 8. 8 and 4 was 12. This little bump out I just took off your drawing and scaled, just use that to model it. So, and on top of that, we have the planks. I'm sure I'm going to miss stuff and get out of order here. There we go, PC planks. And again, I took these lines off your drawing, and I'm assuming that each one is sort of a standard width for a Spancrete panel, and I just modeled it as it was. And this width as a standard leaves this little triangle opening in here, and I'm like, okay, I understand where that came from. And originally I modeled them per your drawing out to the edge, and then we talked about the insulation going in there. So then I cut it back to make room for this nailer and the insulation. And that occurs on these 3 sides. I wasn't sure if it would go here. If you look at the shop drawings on 6A, I did put it in the model. I have not cut it out to make that space. I just left it where it was because I wasn't sure how that was going to work. So that means the overlap on top here is 6.5, not 8. Hopefully that's okay. And let's turn that off because I don't need to go too far into all that. As I had said, I set this surface, the top, as 0 because that's where your steel is going to attach to. And this wall, this foundation, I moved over, 2 inches normal to this surface, and this one in 2 inches, just to make room for the skylight so it would frame out nice. And I'll show you that a little bit later. So that's where this goes. Now, with the foundation here and these planks and that, I had also put in a modeled element for the sheathing on the new house. And that was literally, I took your drawing and you can see it there, and I just drew an outline of it and projected a solid. I didn't worry about it. I keyed it into the work point for the skylight up here, dropped it in. It should be right where your drawing had it. And at 3 inches back, that's sort of lining up with the foundation, which leads me to think I've got this part of the foundation wrong. Because when I put the face brick on, and also the little cap, the sill piece, it starts to walk out 4 inches from the sheathing, and I don't think that was your intent. But please let me know if it is, because this will make a special detail we have to deal with. So I wasn't sure how that was going to go. And then you've got it also when it runs into the brick here. We got to give some thought to that later. And I was pretty sure it would just go between the bricks at this little opening into there. Now, don't forget I don't have the CMU turned on right now. So this is kind of verify what's going on with this wall sheathing to the face brick. Not a big concern for the skylight, but something we want to make sure we address right. And I think I've made a mistake there. So let me turn off a few things. And then we'll go back. And then for the topping, I'm not going to turn, let's turn on the steel tubes. And that's where they go. I didn't put the base plates on them. I'm not sure how your base plates work when the plank ends right next to it. That's something you might want to consider. And then like we talked, I set the tubes flush to the square, and then I brought it right into the shoulder here so that the steel frames out nice and neat. The iron workers will have these physical shoulder points to line up. And on my page 2A, there's a layout of this giving them the right slopes to do. So let me bring that in here and we'll go back to 2A. So this is the hip, and so these are skewed coming in, but 4'6" by 9'3" and a fraction. This is 9 foot by 4'6". So you want to make sure he does the pitch at the hip different than the pitch at the sides. That's just how it has to be for everything to stay planar, and we want to create parallel planes with the glass. And so that's what this layout for the steel will do. You will make sure that the geometry you want for the glass is replicated in the steel so they'll work together. And like I said, I held the dimension out to out of the steel is the same as what was on your drawing. 18 foot out to out of steel, 20 foot to foundation. The skylight is 19.2.5. The ledge was 19.4. Numbers you're familiar with. So now, and I'm still not going to turn the topping on because there's some stuff to look at here. So there's a little pocket right there. And if I read the drawings right, the CMU numbers kind of work off this corner. So let me turn on the CMU wall. Oop, and that blocked our view. And there was a 1 foot 2 3/4 coming into the building, and the outside part was there, but there's a little pocket underneath here, and I don't know what you want to do to fill that in. And of course the foundation was 8 inches plus 4, but the CMU will be 7 5/8. The CMU should be flush to the inside face. That gives more room for the skylight on the outside. And then when we get up here by the steel, it needs to be kind of stepped back so that the steel can go over it. And then I kind of like this pocket here because it makes a space for the skylight connections, which I'll show you in a minute. So that's the foundation, the planks, the steel, the CMU. Let's put the porch steps in. And there's the steps, but then the brick was kind of following that. But then the height here leaves like a trench off the step for your face brick. And I wasn't sure how that worked. I was kind of playing with it, but I really didn't have time to get it to work. Again, it doesn't really affect me, but I wanted to show you. So let me turn the face brick back on. And so I've kind of just modeled it in there. And then there's also some very thin tapery stuff going on this side of it. But then the sheathing actually comes out to the other side. So I'm not sure how that works. Let me turn on that sill piece. So then this sill is going to bump up against that upturned leg of your porch step. And there's the notch we've been talking about for where the skylight sill has to go, because we want to connect down lower. We don't want to connect at the topping or to the flooring. We want to go right down to something hard. So again, these are things for you to kind of look at. I can ignore them. But that's the foundation, the planks, the CMU, the face brick, the steps, how that's working, and then the topping and insulation. If I turn that back on, edge insulation, topping, and I think that will do it. And now in the model, this is still higher. In the drawings, I dropped this height a little bit more than what's in the model. I don't know that I'll go back and modify it. Also in the drawings, there's a chamfer on that piece of wood, and I've added that to page A2 here. I've got a note and a note there. But if we go to page 6, that's the chamfer there. And I don't like just setting the flashing and sealant on here, but I think if we underbend this angle, then when we nail it to the nailer, it'll be kind of pre-tensioned to dig into the concrete. We can bed it real fat and sealant, and then pound it down with a nail, and it'll have a tendency to want to just stay there and not release. And I did the same thing here. This is next to the door, where you have the upturned leg on your porch steps, and here I put the nailer in again with the insulation, and then this dashed line at the top, that's the top of your curb for the porch step that flushes out with the flooring, and that's this little detail here. There's your floor, and here's your little thing like you drew it with the upturned curb leg. So that would happen where the door happens, but next to it the skylight's going to go a little bit lower. And that is what you see detailed over here. And there's two corners here that we're going to want to look at. And now I'm not sure what happens where this curb ends with the face brick. That's something you're going to want to look at. See if I don't get lost here. I kind of ran it out like it was going to have a little bit of it tucked behind the brick and run to the CMU. I'm not sure how you want to do that. And we'll come back to this with the skylight stuff in a minute. So that's basically the big things for that. So let me turn the skylight frame and clips on. Pardon me. Light frame. Sorry. Sport clips. So here's our space up in the CMU. And so I've got I want to go into that space to get these clips in to anchor the skylight. And then here's where our little hip rafters come over. And I still haven't figured out how to connect this one. I tend to think I'm going to build kind of a fancy little corbel underneath here. We could probably route out something that looked kind of neat. If there's something you want to make as a one of feature, that would be at the top of the stairs. Keep it to a flat plate that we can route out. You know, we don't have any like three-dimensional stuff, but we can build something that's going to prop this rafter up, and then this guy will sit on top of that. But that was our basic deal. And if you kind of look, I trimmed the CMU and the brick off at a certain dimension, and I just arbitrarily took this 4 inches to get that cut. It could be higher, lower, I don't really know. I like that the flashing does an upturn leg to keep it dry. I don't know that I want to go over the top with our stuff and bring this down, but we had to start somewhere, so I picked that point and ran it in there. And that's probably the biggest thing to talk about, is how to detail that end up here. But I like the space for the clips. The drawings have some details showing these supports. Alright, it's getting a little bulky, and we're going to make these welded pedestals that slide inside the bar. There'll be a couple of screws out here, and that way we can just work off the 4-inch wide steel tube and anchor it, and we'll have some access holes in the frame that we drill through, so that way you don't have to have any ugly plates hanging off the side. So I thought that would work well. Down here at the sill, we end up with this one rafter running for about 8 feet, and it's got no other framing to brace it, and it's just sort of hanging here by itself, and it doesn't have a sill tube to connect to, and I think I'm going to have to put some angle clips in here. It's like one above and one underneath it, and then we'll drill vertically on the hidden pocket, and you can see that on page 15. So this would be an angle with the toe up and toe down, and then one screwed into the CMU wall, one screwed to the rafter, and then when they go together, we can drill it vertically to fasten it, and that'll give us some adjustment left and right. We'll have to work on that. Didn't mean to switch that. But that's all going on in here. I don't think I can leave this tube just hang here. And I don't know how our flashing is going to terminate when we come down, because all of a sudden you've just got this with a door threshold. Historically, this is a very weak place to get it waterproofed. I'm not quite sure what to do with this to make it good. We got the same thing going over here where your threshold is going to be, and then our frame, so your door frame is going to stop above, and I don't know if it'll show through if I put caps and glass on. But there's still, we've got to find a way to make this waterproof in these little corners, because that's where stuff's going to leak habitually, and that these two corners I'm worried about the most for sealing. These two, and then this one up here at the top. Everything else is relatively standard stuff. So, and I think that was all the hidden surprises or little quirks that I had discovered so far. I'm sure I'll think of more. But that's just something to look at before we talk on Wednesday. I think we're close to finishing it up, which would be good. We got to get it going, and I will talk to you later. Have a good weekend. Thanks.